check, check. 1, 2, check. All right. Welcome back to the series where we hopefully recreate the Earthrealm village from Mortal Kombat Deception Conquest mode. So the last episode, basically, we successfully ripped the entire first part of the level into Unreal Engine 5, and we have it 1-to-1 scale so far. I've decided, however, that from now on I'm going to be going the MCC route in terms of the remaster, so that way you can play both the original, quote-unquote, original graphics, and then press a button, and then it'll switch to Unreal Engine 5's remastered version of it. Without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so since now I'm basically recreating 1-to-1 the original look and feel of the game as well as a remastered look and feel, basically I just need to go around and clean up all the meshes, make sure that all the textures align so that way they look proper, that the textures are displaying properly, and that there's no extra duplicate meshes. So that way when I import them all into Unreal Engine 5, hopefully there won't be too many duplicates. Alright, so first we started with the landscape because that would be the easiest and it takes up the most space. So first what I did was I got rid of all the duplicate textures, so that way there was only one single texture and material to apply to all of the terrain, especially considering the terrain uses the same grass texture, so that was pretty easy. I also went around and made sure that all the vertices that were supposed to be flat were scaled to the Z-axis, so that way they were actually properly flat and everything was nice and even. So next after that was the roads and the road edges. Those were a little bit trickier because ripping models from an old game into a new game isn't perfect. There's going to be some issues, there's going to be some stuff you're going to have to edit, and all the roads didn't really align properly, so I had to go around and make sure that each section was properly aligned to the Z-axis, and everything was flat that needed to be flat, and everything was properly aligned, nothing was overlapping in any weird ways. And the roads pretty much took up the most time, so. And then once the terrain and the roads were all settled and all the trees and all that were done, I focused on the buildings next. They pretty much got the same treatment that the landscape and the roads got. All I did was just make sure there weren't any duplicate textures or duplicate static meshes, and made sure everything was properly aligned and in the appropriate spaces. Also, for some reason, I noticed in the original game versus the ripped level that there were a couple of meshes that were missing, like some bushes or some weeds along the water line, so I went ahead and made sure that was duplicated and put in their proper spot, so that way we have a 1-to-1 original recreation or importation, if you will. There were a few buildings that I did run across some issues with UVs not aligning properly that I had to go into and manually rearrange them, like the I refer to it as the longhouse in my Blender files. Another tricky little rascal was the big academy school with the water fountain in the middle. For some reason a lot of walls were missing, so I just had to manually duplicate and replace those, and wasn't too much of a hassle. And then aside from like a few shacks missing some roofs, that was pretty much it. There wasn't too much to edit in terms of the buildings. It was mostly just textures and UV editing. Next and finally was the castle walls, which was, it's pretty straightforward. It's the same treatment as the other objects, just deleting duplicates and making sure everything was perfectly straight and aligned. So basically, once I had ran through all the terrain, all the roads, all of the buildings, and any other extra static meshes in the castle walls, along with all the textures, I felt like I was ready to do a test import into UE5 and see how we did. Right off the bat, collisions were a problem. I tried generating collisions within UE5 and that didn't work, so I'm just going to have to manually edit the collisions later. So we can't really walk through the level at the moment, but I did a quick little comb through. It looks like everything's aligned as it should be. All the terrain is flat, all the roads are flat where they should be. Everything looks like it's connected seamlessly, even though it's made up of a bunch of jigsaw pieces, practically. Everything looks like it's one continuous piece, which is good. And then as I was continuing my little comb through, I noticed that there were some inverted normals. So immediately, anytime I found something like that, I just went into the Blender file, inverted them, saved the file, and then just re-imported it. So that issue was no problem. I also put this little panner on this fountain material here. Makes it look like it's moving, so that's pretty cool. And then I also made sure that any textures that were utilizing double-sided materials like like this little thing right here, I made sure to enable them to get the proper look, of course. After my quick little once over, I went to the files to check out the materials and textures to see if there were any duplicates, and unfortunately there were. Not a huge deal. So basically what I did was I went into Unreal Engine 5 and organized all the duplicates from there, which was a little bit of a tedious process. Once I deleted all the duplicate materials, obviously a lot of the static meshes lost their materials, so I had to manually go in and plug each one into their correct one. So it wasn't like super hard or complicated or anything, just really time consuming, but I'm glad I did it because now everything's nice, neat, and organized, and I reduced the count down from, I don't know, a couple hundred textures to, I don't know how many, I didn't really count, but it's definitely not as much as last time, it's definitely going to help the level load and improve with memory reduction. Even though this game was made in like 2008 and these textures are so low quality, it doesn't even really matter, but hey. So after all that, I took a little break to work on the NPCs. I wanted to come up with a very simple path that the NPCs could follow, and with a little help from YouTube, I was able to create this monstrosity. Actually, it's quite simple. It's basically just once the NPC gets to a target, it switches to another target to walk to, and then once it gets to the end or its last target, it just reverts back to the first one, basically. So now we have NPCs that look like they're walking around. Alright, so now that all the glaring issues and the issues that I could see right away were taken care of, I did one final sweep through to make sure that there were no defects, there were no meshes that were sticking out or missing textures or missing objects. And I did find a few areas, nothing too huge, just, you know, a few little cracks in the ground here and there where the road and the terrain don't meet, or, you know, like this little spot, or this little spot by the trees, or the road texture over here coming up into the water. You know, no big deal. No one's gonna really make a big fuss about it, but I will. So I fixed it. After doing a little edit in Blender and then re-importing it, everything is looking really good. Everything is nice and scaled 1:1. It looks just like it did in the original, minus the lighting, and all the textures are loading in very nicely. Minus the blue discoloration. I haven't quite figured out how to remedy that problem yet. Alright, I think that's going to do it for this video. That's all I have for right now. So yeah, getting rid of the blue discoloration on the textures if I can. That's going to be the next goal. Creating custom collisions, and then trying to replicate the look and feel, including like the skybox and the lighting, to what it looked like on the Xbox and PlayStation versions, to try to really emulate that nostalgic, dreamy-esque feel of the original game. I'd also like to take a second to acknowledge the fact that my last upload was a little over a year ago, I think now. So I realized the gap between that video and this video is quite long. There was some stuff happening in my life. I talk a little bit about that in my my apology video. So if you want a little bit more details on my personal life and my journey as an artist, you can go watch that video. I talk a little bit more about it there, but I'm gonna try to stick to a weekly schedule with this series, as well as some other projects I'm working on. So I'm gonna try to upload at least every Saturday. That's the goal. Keep an eye out next Saturday for another video on this series. If you like this series and you want to follow me along on this journey, be sure to subscribe, like, or let me know in the comments what you think about this project, and if you have any criticism or any input you'd like. I read all the comments, and with that, I think that's it. Goodbye.